Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be back at our Designing an Attitude of Gratitude live stream for the In Learning Partnership. My name is Lena Darnay. I am with Keep Indiana Learning, and I'm here with Sarah Bunner and Courtney Hott, both from the Indiana Department of Education. They're going to be talking with us about amplifying student voices. But first, they were sharing some of their favorite things about Thanksgiving coming up. So we're going to do a little moment of thankfulness. What foods are you thankful for, ladies?
I think my favorite is either stuffing or pumpkin pie. I can't decide between the two.
What's great is you don't have to pick. You can have both.
I have both.
Sarah, what about you?
I think green bean casserole, because it wasn't really a staple for us growing up. And when I learned that other people had green bean casserole for Thanksgiving and started making it, it became kind of my favorite.
Those little crunchy onions on top, those are the best.
Totally.
Always thankful for crunchy things on the top of casseroles. All right, ladies, I'm going to let you amplify your voices in the call of amplifying student voices. Take it away.
Okay, welcome everyone. Sarah and I are so excited to be here. Today, we want to talk a little bit about how to amplify student voices in your schools and what the benefits can be of that. So we'll start off and just introduce ourselves. My name is Courtney Hott. I'm the Director of Student, School, and Family Engagement here at the department. I am a licensed school counselor and school administrator by trade. However, I've spent quite a few years in and out of the policy world. So I actually started my career post-undergrad in the policy world. I worked in the Indiana Senate and for the governor for a little while, Governor Daniels. And then when his term ended, I was so in love with education policy. I wanted to know more about what it was like being on the ground floor. And I felt like I couldn't truly make a difference in education policy if I hadn't been in it. And so I got my master's in school counseling, worked in the field for quite a few years, and then became a school administrator, and then decided it was time for me to go back to the state level and work on policy up there. So I spent about a year as the school counseling specialist with the department. Took a little higher education sabbatical, as I call it, and I was the director of legislation for the Commission for Higher Ed. Thoroughly enjoyed my time there, and then most recently have just started back with the department, heading up the Student, School, and Family Engagement team in August. Our team formerly was the Social Emotional Behavioral Wellness team, and our name recently changed. We are expanding to include more than just social emotional learning. We have prevention. We have specific groups that we represent on our team now. We have the foster youth specialist. We have the McKinney-Vento specialist. We're also going to start working with schools on teacher wellness and school climate and culture. So all very exciting things. And some of our projects that we're most excited about are Project Aware. So going into that, I will let Sarah take over.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. So I'm Sarah Bunner. I am the Project Aware 2 specialist at the Indiana Department of Education. I am really new to the department. I was previously in a position at the Indiana Division of Mental Health and Addiction. I was working on Project Aware in a different capacity at the Division of Mental Health and Addiction, and then came on board recently to lead up a second round of grant funding that we have received in Indiana. And this grant funding was given to us by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And we administer this grant in collaboration with the Division of Mental Health and Addiction. And it is all about building infrastructure and supports for mental health throughout Indiana. So we are really grateful to be here today. My background, I started working with students, young people, in substance misuse treatment. And then I did health education as well, and then onboarded at the Division of Mental Health and Addiction. So really grateful to be here talking about student voice with you all, which is near and dear to me and to our team, and a really important topic. So next slide, please.
Yep. I'm sorry about that little mess up. I lost the PowerPoint.
Well, you must be human then, huh?
Yeah.
All right. So I just want to start out by giving you an overview of what we're going to talk about today. So today is just kind of a brief glimpse at student voice and kind of the value that it brings to the work that we do at the state and the value that it can bring to any work that is done with students throughout Indiana or young people in general. So we'll talk about the benefits of student voice. We'll talk about how we can incorporate student voice into our work and some best practices for that. We'll give you a practical example of a way that Project Aware has engaged student voice. And then we'll talk about school policies that you could utilize to encourage student voice within your community. All right. I'm going to pass it over to Courtney now to talk a little bit more about some of the benefits of student voice.
Yeah, so first of all, before we get going on this, there's a QR code on the screen if you want to scan that. It's one of our favorite resources when it comes to talking about student voice. It is a resource through CASEL. We use CASEL quite a bit. All of our social emotional learning competencies are aligned with CASEL. And they have just some really wonderful evidence-based, research-based information. So that's a great thing for you to just kind of save for later when you have time to read through it. Some of the benefits to increasing your student voice and really like focusing on student voice in your schools is you're going to increase their engagement in learning. Students who feel heard and feel like they have a say in their learning experience are going to be more engaged, and they're going to learn more. They're going to test better. They're going to just retain more information. This is all really just scientifically proven that this happens. It encourages collaboration between students and their teachers, which we love seeing, because not only are they collaborating among their peers, they're learning how to communicate with people that aren't necessarily their age. It's a really just important skill to have. They're going to help create and maintain a positive environment and culture in their school. Students who feel engaged in their school and feel like they belong are less likely to act out. They're less likely to be in trouble. They're less likely to kind of get in those situations that are not so positive when it comes to environment and culture. They build respectful relationships and connections and belonging, just really that meaningful, like I'm at school and I have a role and I'm wanted here. We want them developing personal social capabilities and civic engagement. So if they're engaged in school, it's likely that they will leave school and still continue to engage in their communities, right? We want them to be engaged in whether it's government or community service or anything that can really just help make the world a better place. We also, by doing this, we're allowing students to fight stigma by using their voice. They can listen to us talk all day about the benefits of taking care of their mental health and treating mental illness, but until we really listen and hear it from them, then it can fight the stigma amongst the children, like amongst the students, right? Because they listen to each other. They care about what the others think at their age level. Also, amplifying their roles and voicing their hopes for the future. We want them to be able to talk about these things, right? We want them to be passionate about it. We want them to have a stage to discuss these things. It's just overall, there's really no downside to having students speak. We want them to be engaged and be part of this. Sarah is now going to talk about some incorporating student voice and what that means and what that looks like.
Yeah, and Courtney, I heard you say there's no downside to student voice, but it isn't always easy to incorporate student voice. And there are some guideposts that are really helpful in doing so in a way that is meaningful and safe for everybody. So first of all, seek students with diverse communication styles and strengths. So this means when we're seeking students to use their voice and to engage in discussion with stakeholders or with people in positions of power, let's not just seek students who are already showing up for extracurriculars all the time or really active in student government. Those voices are important and they should be incorporated, but we also want to talk to students who maybe aren't always super active in the things that are going on within the school, students who have something to say but maybe haven't used a venue to speak their voice yet. We also want to allow adults who know the students to nominate leaders. So really ask that the people who are in the most contact with students, like teachers, that they identify students who they think maybe have something to say and have good communication skills, whether that be written communication skills, whether that be public speaking, whether that be artistic skills. We want to engage the people who know the students best to nominate who they think can show leadership within this arena. Be authentic with students. Students can tell when you are not engaged or are not really listening to what they have to say, and if you're just doing it to check it off of a list. So really show up and be present with them as your full self. And that said, we also need to hold professional boundaries. So we need to understand our responsibility to keep students safe. So adults who are interacting with students should understand that they are not expected to be responsible for fixing anything negative that a student may have to say, but they should be prepared to provide connections to support if and when that is needed. So if an adult is interacting with a student about a sensitive topic, like mental health, for instance, it's important that they know exactly who to contact if they feel that student safety is threatened or if a student needs more support. And then we want to let students lead. So as adults, we have all sorts of structures and ways that we do things, and we know how to run meetings and participate in meetings. And we want to use the things that we have learned and then also allow students to take some agency in how they want to format and get across the information that they have in creative ways. And then this goes along with being authentic, but really listen, be open to feedback. If we're hearing things about our school community that may be hard to hear, remember that it's not personal. It's about what this student sees as being important to the whole community. And so we want to really mindfully listen. And I'm going to pass it over to Courtney to talk a little bit more about how we can incorporate student voice meaningfully.
Yeah, so with all of that, we want to be open to surprise, right? Our students surprise us. We have no idea where these discussions are going to land or what's going to be brought up. So we want to go into it with an open mind without some kind of predisposed idea of where it's going to end up. This gives students the freedom and the safety to kind of lead it and get the conversation to where they want to go. Be flexible with scheduling. Okay, students are hard to wrangle, right? Sarah and I both know this from experience, and we know each and every one of you know this from experience. They are hard to pin down. They are hard to get to show up to things. So be flexible with them and let them run the show a little bit. You know, if they think something's going to work, let them give it a shot. Empathize with them and get on their level. Don't try and persuade them to think differently. I think sometimes when we're working with students and they think of things differently, it's easy to look at them and say, oh, yeah, but that's not really how things are. That's not really how things operate. Try to avoid doing this. That kind of devalues the meaning to them and makes them kind of feel like their voice isn't being heard. So kind of allow them to have that space to be creative and really try to put yourself in their shoes and empathize with where they're at and try to meet them on their level. Link them up with stakeholders for other ways to use their voice and engage. If you have a student who's really interested in government, set them up with maybe your local city council or set them up with even your local school board. I'm sorry. That post-lunch tired time. Set them up with people in the community that are advocates and teach them how to utilize this skill outside of just school, because this is a lifelong skill that they can use forever. You could even go as far as encouraging them to do things like they could page at the legislature, which is a full day. They get to experience the legislature and be in the action. You could encourage them to, reach out to people and just figure out the best way to utilize their own voice and their engagement. Show up for the work. This is not going to be an easy thing. Students are going to put a lot of work into this. It's show up for them. That's honestly, if you can show up and you can listen, that is your two best bets when it comes to incorporating student voice, because that's really what students want when it really comes down to it. We recently did a Panorama. We got data back from Panorama for a pilot we're running in the state. And listening was the number one thing that students said that they wanted out of their school teachers, out of their faculty, was they said they just want them to really listen. So show up for them in person, but also show up for them emotionally. It's just really important, and it means more than we think it does. We're going to talk a little bit about practical examples now, and what this looks like in a school setting.
Yeah, so thanks, Courtney. As I mentioned, the work I do within the Indiana Department of Education is with Project Aware, which is that 5-year school mental health grant received from SAMHSA in partnership with the Indiana Division of Mental Health and Addiction. So in the spring, myself and my coworker, who is not with us today, Jess Yoder, who is also a Project Aware specialist for the first round of grant funding that we received, we sat down and we're talking about ways to incorporate student voice into the work that we do. We really value the fact that the students that we serve deserve to have a voice in what's happening at the state level and within their districts. And we wanted to give them the space to express their opinions about that. So we reached out to the districts that we work with within Indiana, and we gave them all the opportunity to nominate 2 students within their district who they could tell were compassionate, who valued talking about and working on the well-being of their community, and maybe weren't necessarily like super active, like we said, in extracurriculars at the time, but were clearly had something valuable to share. And so we met with these students. We had a discussion with them about the things that they felt would make it easier to be a student and to be mentally well in Indiana. We really asked the question, what does it take to be mentally well within your school? And what's going well and what can be improved? And then we brought those students down to Indianapolis. And in August, those 10 student ambassadors from 6 districts in Indiana came to the State House, and they presented their opinions and priorities around school mental health to stakeholders at the Department of Ed and the Division of Mental Health and Addiction. So they selected their own topics. They organized together to figure out what the message was that they had to share, how they wanted to share that, the medium they wanted to use, and then if they had any suggestions for things that could be possible solutions to these things for them. So it was really impactful, super informative to myself, to other leadership that were there, and to the other people who attended. We will continue to work with these students, the ones who are available, and then seek ways to incorporate student voice from the districts that we continue working with in Indiana throughout Project Aware. It has been one of the most meaningful things, I think, within my own career and certainly within my work at the department and the Division of Mental Health and Addiction. So that's just one example of a way that we could maybe empower students within our communities. We can do that on a local scale and sort of figure out what venues there are for empowering students within your community to use their voice. And this will be different wherever you are in Indiana.
Just to touch on that, if you don't mind real quick, Sarah.
Please, yeah.
Something I was thinking about when you were talking about how valuable it's been and one of your favorite things that you've done since working on this project. That's the similar feedback that I got from our executive leadership here at the department and other agencies, was that this was probably their favorite event that they've attended, and felt like one of the most meaningful things that they've done since they've been at the department. I've had a lot of them say that directly about this. And I think that just goes to show that how impactful stories can be and personal accounts can be. And so, especially in a time where it's really hard to have these discussions, I think when we listen to our students and really meet them where they're at, we can have a lot of really great discussions around it. And I think that's the way to really influence change, especially in your community, is to put a face to these issues and allow students to share with what's really happening to them.
Yeah, it can absolutely also be very encouraging. I remember a student shared that there was a loss in their community, a tragedy in their community, and they were able to meet with a school social worker, and they expressed the value of that, and then they went on to say, hey, let's see that continue to happen. Let's see a space for school social workers within schools in Indiana be valued and continue to be something that and that we value as a district and as a state. And that's really encouraging, right, for the people who are doing this work, which is hard work, to hear that that's impactful on an individual and community level. Yeah, absolutely.
This has been really wonderful. Thank you guys so much for sharing your expertise, these resources. We're hearing a lot of really great feedback from your session. Just that quick 20 minutes can really impact how people are thinking. And some of your resources, that Castle resource, I agree. I was looking through that, and when you put the QR code up there, I did put it in the chat as well in case someone missed the QR code, so they've got a link to that. This has been really wonderful to hear from both of you, and I hope it is just the first of many times we're able to hear from such an important department within the department, and from your student voice and your advocacy for our students. So thank you both so much.
Yeah, and don't hesitate to reach out to us. The best way to get us is engagement@doe.in.gov. So I don't know if you can put that in the chat, but if you want to shoot us an email there, we're happy to help you with anything or whatever you need. We're here for you.
That's wonderful. Thank you both so much. And thank you all for joining us. And we'll go live again in just a few short minutes talking about mindfulness with breath and movement. And it's a perfect continuation of our Attitude of Gratitude Day with the In Learning Partners. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.